So now on stage, we will have a panel discussion, and we will have 4 participants joining me for the first round. After hearing both Kevin Munday's inspirational presentation and then the Inspiro students as well, they're all great examples on how entrepreneurship can be integrated as a learning strategy. So let's welcome to the stage our panelists. We have Ine Marie Eriksen, Member of Parliament from the Conservative Party. Welcome to the stage. We also have researcher Øystein Gilje. Welcome to the stage. And we have the leader of the School Student Union of Norway, Axel Fjeldavli. And welcome back to you, Kevin, from the Think Forward program. So, welcome to all of you. The name of this session is Training for the Real World, and the theme to discuss in this session is whether we actually succeed in training the youth for the real world. Is the educational system preparing youth for the modern labor market? And we are focusing in particular on education up to and including upper secondary school in this session. So before I will start with some prepared questions for the panelists, you will all have a minute or two just to shortly describe what your role is and why you have an interest in this topic. And I will come back to some questions for you afterwards. Ine, we can start with you.
Thank you. Thank you also for very inspirational framework for this this session. I mean, I especially liked the last part where you take into business something I think many young people have thought about for many years, how to try to guide parents in the middle of a divorce. Very good idea. And I just have to take you up on your offer at once, saying that I absolutely agree with you that every young person should have the opportunity to be working with entrepreneurship at some point during the education, because I think it works fine. I'll get back to that. Well, I just have to say just 2 words about my background. I have been in Parliament now for 12 years, starting to get old. And I used to be in the Committee for Education and Research for 8 years, also sharing the committee. Now I'm sharing the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee, a bit different, but still we do a lot of discussions also on the issue of how to prepare young people for the world. And I would just like to start with quoting José Manuel Barroso, who's the president of the European Commission. He has been saying that investing in young people is the best business plan you can have. And I totally agree with him. And I think that young people today need to be prepared to adapt to change even more frequently than even my generation did. And it's not that long ago that I was in school.
You're still a young alibi here.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. But I think we need to acknowledge that young people today need to adapt much quicker and much more often, and that makes the basic skills more important and the entrepreneurship skills more important, because then you can adapt to different situations that comes up during your life. And I would also just like to add, before I pass the floor on to Espen, that I think the idea of many young people that when you start working, when you have been educated, you're finished with your education. I think that is a great misunderstanding. When you start working, that's when you start learning. So one has to be open for learning new things during your whole work life.
Thank you so much. Øystein?
Yes, and also I would like to use the opportunity to say that this is just a wonderful forum to be in. And it's so nice to see so many young people here, because I think we are about to discuss issues that should be interesting for you to hear about. I'm a researcher, and I'm currently working at the University of Oslo, and we are doing 2 different projects now, and they are called Learning Lives and Knowledge in Motion. And these 2 projects, they share an interest on how young people learn in school and out of school, which means in both projects we follow a number of young people and look at how they learn in school, but also what their interests are outside school. And we believe that learning and identity is always closely related to each other. So when you learn something, you also become someone as a learner, which means you develop a learner identity. And I think it is, I mean, what you demonstrated here with your case in entrepreneurship is a wonderful case of how you develop a learner identity. Because, as you said, entrepreneurship education and entrepreneurship is so different from taking a test or reading to the test. So we think that the future of education, and of course I will return to that, but the future of education is actually to have some kind of project-based work where people really develop their identity as learners in a process that runs over a longer term or a longer time than one specific test.
Great, thanks. Axel?
Yeah, I have to thank so much for the invitation to this forum as well. It is a very important discussion we are having here, because it is about something that is like the centerpiece of school. It's about equipping students with the skills they need for their lives. And through my work in the School Student Union, that has always been the centerpiece of my work also. It's about student empowerment, it's about student participation, and so. And I think it's this things is not possible to manage without relating the school to the world that is around it. That meaning like museums, local businesses, nature, everything, and learning can never be done with a book only. And I think it's only in the meeting between what you have read in a book and the real life you are meeting when you're outside school or taking the things outside school into the school. That is when learning happens. And I think we need sort of a shift of focus in schools and also in the debate about school from like the academic skills and into learning from maybe from the hand to the head instead of from the head to the hands. Yeah.
Thanks. Kevin, do you have anything to add, listening to these reflections, or adding to what you told us earlier today before we start up with the questions?
Yeah, I would just endorse what I've heard about the importance of learning as an experiential process. And then actually what we need to do, both in school and in community settings, is create more opportunities for young people to work out what their passions are and have a go at them. For some young people, that will lead into their own enterprise. But for other young people, even if it doesn't, they'll have learned so many skills along the way, which are the skills that employers want.
Yeah, one can wonder when listening to the four of these, where is the temperature of this discussion? Because they all seem to be very agreeing with each other about the whole holistic approach and how to learn in different kind of areas. But we have to dig a little bit deeper in that, I think. And it's only natural to start with Ine Marie, because my first question to you was actually whether you would take up on the challenge from the Inspiro students. But now we can just put that aside. You have already done that, and we'll hold you to it as well, of course. But you said something in your introduction here about the different of learning both the basic skills and the entrepreneurship, because we are indeed living in a shifting world. And it's interesting to hear a little bit more about that, because your party has been somewhat criticized for focusing too much on the basic skills and the formal skills, perhaps more than the entrepreneurship skills. So can you say, so what do you think is the most important that students at this age should learn at school?
I don't think it's either or. It's a little bit of both. And the reason why we have been focusing so much on the basic skills is that we needed to, because Norwegian students of all ages didn't get through school with the basic knowledge in reading and writing. So around 20% of young kids went through school without learning to read and write. And as you can imagine, in a shifting and challenging world like ours, that could possibly kind of put up a lot of barriers towards both entrepreneurship and also your life as an employee or an employer. So that's why it's important to have that as a basic, a ground. But then, of course, we need to adapt the way we learn and the way we teach to a new world. And we have been putting forward a lot of proposals regarding, first and foremost, how to do or how to make the education more relevant for the practical work that you're supposed to do later on. Let me give you one example. we had a bit of fun with it because it's quite a funny example. But when you're 18 and you're in high school in Norway, it's forbidden, if you're going to be a carpenter, to use a nail gun. And you have to learn how to use a nail gun if you're supposed to be a carpenter. And that's kind of the barriers that when sometimes you experience that the barriers are too high, and you need to get the focus on how to be able to teach people, young people, the skills they need, and how to motivate and inspire them. And I think that the examples that Kevin gave, and especially when it comes to how to get both teachers and also counselors into school that has a quite good connection with the work life, the real work life. That's so important. I can just imagine, I mean, when I was 14, 15, 16, and I was, or there were people trying to guide me as to what I was supposed to do when I was older, the most inspiring ones were those who were carpenters, those who were teachers, those who were lawyers, trying to tell me this is a good way to choose. It wasn't as funny when the school's primary advisor told me that this is what you should do, because he or she didn't have the feeling, the emotion for the work. So that's very important. And also to try to make the curriculum more pointed towards the practical parts. Because today you can easily make even reading, writing, English, Norwegian, maths, you can make it more interesting and relevant to what you're going to do afterwards. Because today many pupils, they experience a disconnect between what they teach in school or what they learn in school and what they experience afterwards.
Yeah, so to sum it up, you think of a more practical approach and changing the learning strategies more than the goals themselves, basically. Do you agree, Axel? Is this also the viewings of your organization?
Yeah, somehow, but I think that I agree with the thought of like basic skills and that students should be able to do something instead of knowing something, which is somehow the change that has happened in school. But I do somehow disagree with what is the basic skills. But because I think that learning to learn should have been a basic skill as well, because that is one of the most important things that happens in school is to learn, and that is one of the most important things that happens in life afterwards. And I like very much what you said about learning identity, because I think school has the schools of Norway has a lot to gain in that of making students having an identity as students also, because I think they will have more motivation to learn than also. Like I said in the introduction, what school is about is preparing the students for the future and the life they're having afterwards. And I think actually the schools of Norway has a lot to learn from Star Wars when it comes to what future is about.
Very interesting approach here now.
Yeah,
I think
well, when you're to quote Yoda, the only thing you can know about the future is that it is always in motion, and it is difficult to see. And I think that students should be equipped with the skills they need to meet this changing future, and that I think is learning to learn, and that is what entrepreneurship is about also, I think.
Øystein, what is your take on this from a researcher's point of view? Because you hear what they're saying, to some extent they agree with each other, but on a slightly different approach. Can you give some examples from your studying about when do actually youth learn the most? Under what circumstances do they learn the most?
Yeah, I will do that, but I think I have to make a very quick remark on a few things that are already said. I think on the one hand, we have huge debates about skills and knowledge. That is a debate which is very much attached to the individual learner. On the other hand, we have the structure, which is the school system in a way. But if we create a school system that put too much emphasis on basic skills and in a way test the basic skills too much, we create a system where you as a learner learn that what schooling is is to be tested all the time, which means it will not allow you to develop your own learner identity, your own approach to learning, because the only approach that actually counts in this system is that you have to read for the next test. And then it leads me to your question, of course, how can we understand this in a slightly different way? And I think entrepreneurship education is a new window, so to speak, because it includes skills, everyday skills from our working life. On the other hand, I have been also looking at media education, which is in a way a hybrid in upper secondary school, and actually they are going to close down that very practical-oriented program, because what they found out was most of the students there, they didn't want to be apprenticed or go into work. They wanted to go to the university. But actually that program works for them. But it's a little bit more expensive than the other things, and we can maybe return to that afterwards. But these two windows, entrepreneurship education on the one hand, and media education, could provide us with a slightly different system, a slightly different structure, because it is, as you mentioned here on the stage, talking about your case in entrepreneurship, it is interdisciplinary, it is project-based, and it is, and you quoted in a way John Dewey here, it's learning by doing. And I think it is in a way sad that we are now closing down these things. And there is entrepreneurship education, and entrepreneurship is very high on the political agenda. I think it's not that much disagreement on that. But I think it's kind of sad that we are about to close down a new type of educational program in upper secondary that has so much to offer in these new ways to think about learning and knowledge.
Yeah, and one of the things you're saying then, I suppose, and which, for instance, I would agree on, is that maybe we lack sort of a systematic approach to these questions, because we have the entrepreneurships in all school programs, we have it in all the documents that the school has to run by, but still we see that only 6% of the students this age get the opportunity of joining the company program, for instance. How does this relate to the debate in UK, Kevin? Can you recognize some of these discussions from UK?
Absolutely. I mean, we're having the same debate around basic skills versus work skills as well. In the UK, we've focused down on a more traditional, probably smaller curriculum than we've had for the last 2 decades.
Yeah.
And the reasons are for largely the same as here. We do need to focus on all young people having better numeracy and literacy skills. And we have the same conversation about, well, you need both. My view is the only way you get both is if you have an accountability system within schools which is much more mindful of the destinations that young people go on to, so that schools are judged not just on the qualifications and the academic attainment that they achieve, but they're also held to account for where do young people end up as a result. And I think that is a challenge for many school systems, but I think is the only way really that we get full attention paid to the whole curriculum rather than just qualifications.
Timing is running off, but I'm going to give a last comment to you on this topic, Ine-Marie, because I saw you raised your hand.
Yeah.
So you had any comments on this?
Yes, just a small comment, because what I think that our school system should be is a bit less afraid of opening up to alternative pathways. And let me give one example. There has been over time different businesses and also different collaborations. Some of them are membership or are members of Virke, who have wanted to start a path where young people can take their whole education in a company or parts of it in a company. And I think it's a brilliant idea. And especially when it comes to areas of like craftsmanship and other places where reading about it really isn't the same as doing it. And I think you can open up for that in many other aspects also. And I think it would be a very good way of trying to break down the kind of the closed structures that is between the school and also the life outside of school. Because we can like it or not, but there are closed structures, more or less.
Thank you so much.